Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Pronago bringing you another Cosmonarchy cast, and it is yet another matchup between players in Weekendwage. Don't you worry. Newt versus Sziky is the grand final of this here event. Back on the 9th of November is when we had it. By this point, you probably already wowed and wazooed over the next Weekendwage that we had, which is to be held on the 23rd of November, which, as I record this, is a few days away, but as you watch this, has already happened. That being said, we still want to see how this story was told, and going forward, the videos will be a little bit more snappy in terms of how they're uploaded. Sziky is our Zerg in the top right, our yellow Zerg in the top right, going for a Hydrith opener, and cross-spawn on Punch Drunk, a port of Knockout done by Jujic. We have Newt in the bottom left, Turquoise Terran, going for a Stockade, as per usual. Newt 2-1 Sziky in the upper final. That was a result I was surprised to see, but I am grateful that we have a little bit of an upset here and there, just because I love to see how successful Newt has been in general. Definitely a top-tier Cosmonarch, yet again, ever since rejoining. Didn't take long for him to come back. Well, it took him a while to come back to our server, but it didn't take long for him to come back and do his skill. There you go. That makes a bit more sense. Second Stockade will be coming up here as he looks for Sziky's base. The Larvosk is coming online, but the Hydra then will beat it to the punch, and Sziky, is he setting up an expansion really fast? He's actually very much out in front to see, oh, I think what he was going for was if there was going to be some kind of bio unit running up his ramp, and Newt has been really, really good at that. Very, very interesting. We're going to see whether or not the Larvosk is going to help him out here with more I0 cores, but there's no rush coming for Newt. Interesting choice by him, because that is how he got ahead in a number of his matches. Credit to him, though, he did win a game where there was no rush really executed. Like, he did it, but it didn't go for damage. It didn't actually result in damage. Newt has been pretty good on the macro side as well. So even though he ends up looking a little bit aggressive, a little bit cheesy, sometimes it's that's not all he's got up his sleeve. Starpad on the way early does point towards a drop or maybe a Wraith surprise. Definitely something Newt is a big fan of, but I feel like we're a ways off from seeing Wraiths. We'll probably see, like, 2, maybe 3 star pads if it's going to be like that, and it wouldn't be on one base either. Not that it doesn't exist, just that it's, I've seen enough, star pad plays to know that it comes online a little bit later if it's going to be Wraith. That being said, the I0 cores are fanning out. They will end up scouting the far corners of the map, eventually finding Newt on the other side. We've got Harakans coming well in advance of the I0 core arrival, and the expansion is on the way. Trojan on the way indeed. Am not. Oh, Newt, no! Trojan on the way indeed is going to be very, very good for transporting units. It's also what sometimes Windows Defender thinks Fraud Launcher is. So, yeah, don't do that one. Don't do that one at all. Don't ask AI to help you figure out what the Fraud Launcher does, because it will think that it's fraud. I don't know why it would think that. Only AI could think that, honestly. Loading up the Harakans. And the 4 Mavericks that were off on anti-drop duty by the looks of things will be added to the mix. Or no. They're going to keep it over there. Okay. Just going to drop with the 4 Harakans. The timing is good for it. And it's really hard to deal with much with the, 4 Harakans, a lot of HP to suddenly have in your mineral line. Trying to deal with it. Starpad is idle after the Trojans, so we are going to see Newt doing interesting things. And maybe go for an expansion at some point, but right now just adding another Stockade. And Sziky already going up to the ski backed means that he will have those Bactals out in short enough order. No Hydras as of yet, but he's playing fairly defensively, only 2 I0 cores across the map, so this is one of those things where I feel like if you're going to try to do something feint like this, you need to make your opponent think you've got an expansion coming, which for Terran can be tricky. You can make the Ministry or whatever and then float it, but you do want to deny vision on your natural, because otherwise it becomes a little bit too easy to assume you're going to be doing some kind of drop tactic. Now, the Harakans come out. That should surprise Sziky a little bit, and that splash damage is going to be good for killing at least 1 worker. Ooh, 2 more going down in the fadeaway, but it does look like at the end of the day, Ziki's all right. Maybe he only lost 2 workers total, actually. I thought he lost 3. But you wanted 1 apiece there, ideally. The investment in the Trojan is mostly what the cost is. Harakans themselves, not too costly. Anchor being set up as the expansion comes online. I don't think that was enough damage for Newt to feel comfortable here. It was maybe a little bit too preempted by Ziki's intuition. He's a Starcraft pro, man. He's played like a gabillion games of Starcraft 1, and he's maybe he's getting close to a 50th of that in Cosmonarchy, which is still to say that he's played a lot of Cosmonarchy games. So we'll have to see what he can do. But yeah, you just love to see it, man. I still feel like Zerg is probably one of the harder races in any given... The Cosmonarchy Zerg is a difficult race to learn when you are new to the game. And it is usually the race that, when off-raced by other good players of Terran and Protoss, they struggle with the most. But not always. Ramen's... I think Ramen Zerg is better than his Protoss. He might contest me on that, but that's like one example that I can think of that's a little bit of a counter. But typically, like, Ayud Zerg, I think, is his weakest. Hit 'em up Zerg is, I think, his weakest. That's not to say that they're not good or fearsome or scary on those races, but it is to say that their Protoss is, you know, or their main race, you know, Hit 'em Up's Protoss is his scariest. Maybe his Terran is really scary now too, though, to be fair. But Hit 'em Up's is scarier on the not Zerg races, you know, and Ayud is as well, I would say. So those are just some musings on that, right? Like, I don't think Zerg is actually the hardest race. I think that is Terran, you know, a little bit of solve for the soul for all Terran whiners out there. I do think Terran is the hardest race, but I think Zerg is like the one that requires such a mindset change that, especially like Zerg in StarCraft 1 already requires a huge mindset change. Let me know if you guys agree with this in the comments or whatever, but I feel like Zerg requires such a huge mindset change in StarCraft 1 compared to the other races because of the way that larva works, your production is so different. But then Cosmonarchy Zerg is different in different ways than StarCraft 1 Zerg is. So it's just like compounding on the difference. Like, you can't play Cosmonarchy Zerg the way you play StarCraft 1 Zerg. You will die. So there's things like that that are just like, they make it doubly more, like combinatorially more confusing. Anyway, we have a little bit of a push out here for Newt. Maybe not just a little bit of a push out. It's actually pretty big. You know, it's all right, okay. We got a couple Shamans, we got a lot of Harakan Cyprians, and a decent number of Mavericks as well. So we should actually see this force the issue for Sziky in some capacity. But if those Harakans don't engage properly onto these Teths, we are going to see a bloodbath. Well, at the very least, Newt can't lift off his army the way that he lifted off his ministry, so he should be able to take his angles. Hasn't lost any units yet. Kind of fumbling on the deploy there. One of the Shamans not deployed. Stim Maverick goes live. The Harakans are going to run the armor on the test, but they need to be peeled back. Maybe the Shamans can actually out-heal a lot of this stuff. The Cyprian's getting closed in on. I don't think it's going to work out whatsoever at the end of the day. I feel like that second Shaman not being deployed might have cost him a lot, but at the end of the day, it is a big crushing victory in favor of Sziky. And well, yeah, not the best engagement angle there from Newt, but also a really difficult thing to prepare for in advance when the Zerg is already out on the map. Something about the tempo, the pace of this attack wasn't quite it. And Newt definitely has done that before. So second anchor, he's going to end up loading up Cyprians, making a lot more, trying to be a little bit more on the defensive side. And the other ministry is right next to his main one. So he's okay on that front. The Trojan was minorly repaired and kind of just spying on the third base. By the way, 3 o'clock being taken, bottom right main being taken next by Sziky. He's really not slowing down, even though he's got a grand in the bank and almost enough gas to tech up. He's going for more expansions in the meanwhile. Hydra's getting absolutely shellacked by those Cyprians, by the way. Harakan's trying to run the armor. That's going to help out quite a bit, but are they going to be able to hold off against the Bactals? The last anchor falls. Maybe there should have been a third one. Holy moly, the Tetzoricors are a good unit. And that is going to be a wrap, ladies and gentlemen. Sziky crushes him game 1 in favor of our pro. And on our overlay, you will notice that Sziky was the lower seed. There was a little bit of an error actually made in terms of map selection. It should have been Newt picking the first map because he was in the grand final first. But Jujic reverted to the mantra of upper seed picks the map. And before the tournament seed assigned to Sziky was higher. But that's okay. That's all right. It doesn't mean that we have to replay it or anything, wink. You know, maybe we will just as a grudge match. But we are going to see Newt pick map 2. That is Knife's Edge. That's where he had the banger match against Sziky in the upper final. Probably one of the greatest matches of Cosmonarchy I've ever seen. So let's see if it lives up to the hype for the sequel. Ladies and gentlemen, game 2 between Newt and Sziky. I am really in love with Knife's Edge overall. I would say it ends up being a great map, a port of Dominator, which itself is a 3-spawn port of Gladiator. And a forward stockade is going to be what Newt chooses to do here in the opening moments. 6 stockade, in fact, I believe. Oh, no, 7. Yeah, he did make 1 Mason. He is our gray? Silver Terran. Yeah, I guess we only have dim gray. We don't actually have a gray, just regular gray. Sziky in the bottom left is our midnight green Zerg. So he's going to go the Hydrith opener. Wow. Okay, 2 stockade on 7 Masons. All right, this is going to be a very committed attack. Now, one of the Masons will be scouting out in the bottom left, and I'm assuming, and one of them will go to the top left. But I guess more to the point, the first military unit, if it's a Maverick, will move in the direction of whatever the direction the Mason doesn't. So it actually does consequentially matter. Okay. All right, this is actually looking very powerful for Newt. He's going to send his Maverick to the bottom left because his Mason's going to the top left, unless he's going to gamble that it is top left. Is it 50-50 chance at that point, right? Oh, he's actually going to keep the units in one spot. Okay, so he's not making a decision yet. He's going to wait for the scout to reveal it, and he's also going to wait for his units to kind of bank back up. Behind this, the Azira cores will start pretty soon. Sziky, being a little bit cautious, is... Where is he going to go? Because he is expecting that first military unit. Needs to change it up quite a bit. It looks like he's just going to scout out deep enough to see and then hang out for a little bit. But we got a lot of Mavericks coming, so this does feel like it's a very aggressive position. Azira cores do take a little bit longer to come online than some of the pool units, and you can micro against them to a degree that you cannot with Hydras or even Quas to some degree if you've got cliff advantage, which I guess on this map is pretty unlikely unless you're on the Saber and your opponent isn't. Hurricanes are going to be the go signal here for Newt, and it's a good one. It makes sense. You run the armor of that Azira core, it's no longer nearly as useful. And the first one goes the wrong direction, so he's not going to see this at all. Very unlucky for Sziky, it must be said. Newt's bringing everything to bear. He's got 2 Masons with this push. He's got Mavericks. He's got 2 Hurricanes, and he's going to engage right onto that Azira core immediately. Squeaky bum time for Sziky, who immediately recalls that Azira core up top. Trying to get a little bit of damage dealt. The Droleth, well, that's going to be easy pickings pretty quickly. Actually, Newt's kind of ignoring it right now. The Hurricanes trying to do their best, but the Mavericks weren't stemmed backwards. That is a big set of frags in favor of our Zerg player, but should still be very, very consequential. Oh, that Azira core actually sneaking back. There's no static defense coming up. 2 more Azira cores, but there is some time before they're going to be completed. Is Newt going to be making an anchor over here? He's with a wounded Mason as well. That feels risky. Mavericks waypointed over, but not actually set on the rally point. Looks like that'll be fixed up now. I love repairing the Hurricane. It's a great choice. Going to be a Circuit, very defensively placed behind the Larvosk and the Hydrith, but that's only going to help if Newt ends up being very committal. In fact, the Kagro not being spread towards the ramp is problematic because the anchor can lift off, of course. Waypointing some more units. Newt keeping on just 14 Masons. He hasn't actually been the most on the ball with the worker production, but also he's deliberately choosing to cut that in some other contexts. And here comes the anchor float. All right, well, trying to force the issue here. Sziky got the Ovaleth out. Sziky has it out. Let's see. Right at the edge. So this is going to be for transporting for a flank. It's also going to be good for, moving up the target, seeing up the ramp without having to wait for your units to be hit. These Azira cores are going to try to engage onto this anchor, and look, at the same time, Newt actually pulls away. That feels like the wrong choice. Now stemming out after those Azira cores, the Hurricanes, trying to heckle them, trying to get the splash damage. Oh, I think they were aggroed onto the Circuit, though. There's the backup anchor in the back. There's only 1 Maverick in there, though. Now stemming out. Well, let's see. He's going to end up relocating where that anchor ends up going, and another one going to be constructed right on location. Last time we saw this move, Sziky went for a ski back and did a cool little flank with Bactals and stuff. There's no such tech node coming. Not this time. And the Larvosk is being targeted, at least by one of those Mavericks. So that is consequential. That means that that will eventually fall. Let's see. Maybe not. Azira core is trying to absorb as much target pressure as possible. And down goes the Mason. Ooh, the bounce damage. So good. Maybe should have even kept that anchor alive for a little bit longer, but it's wasted money, so I understand why not. Eventually, these Azira cores will end up faltering, but there's so many more coming. And Sziky hasn't actually taken that much economic damage. Stemming down 1 Azira core. There's another one that's wounded, but he picked the wrong target with the remaining of his Mavericks, and it will start just barely die, but at the other end, there's really not much going on here. If Sziky chooses to break out, now he can. And what's even behind this? Newt trying to set up for an expansion. He doesn't have the money. Anchor and a bunch of Mavericks back at home. Must have been for anti-drop because he saw the Ovaleth, but it didn't end up leaving the base, since now those Azira cores will crush these 2 Mavericks. They were attacking different targets anyway. Unfortunate. Shoot away by some of the rallies, but there's only 2 stockades. Newt making an expansion. Newt's making an expansion right now. I can't believe it, dude. I mean, if he holds, it's legendary. A little bit of drop micro happening there, intentional or otherwise. Might end up scooting it after it, but the Ovoleth is being stimmed after. So, it's not going to quite fall down, though. The Maverick's getting owned by the Iziricors. Newt wishing that balance patch had been hit already, so the Iziricor wasn't so damn beastly, but it is not to be, and I think his ministry is going to be shut down here pretty soon. The stockades are going to be forced to lift. He doesn't have any more military production. He's making another ministry! Has this man lost his marbles? Does he think he's going to be forced to cancel this? He's preemptively making another one? I don't know. I don't know. But down goes the Mason, very close to completion. That's always satisfying when you're not the Terran player. Sziky expanding, slowing down this one. It's going to be a while before Newt can amass enough of an army to actually defend against that. He's got a couple anchors he can maybe try to float over, but then the Iziricors could just walk into the main base. So pretty devastating here for our Terran player. Trying to sneak 2 Mavericks in, but there's already combat units there. So that gets cleaned up very quickly. He just sees the few combat units there in the fog of war. A ministry down below half HP. Eventually it will end up going down. Sziky's happy to just keep heckling it. Huracan's being made now. If he unloads all of his anchors, he might be able to actually break out here just in time. Hydras are on the way to reinforce. Poor Newt. He's going to be strugglesome. That's why he made the other ministry, I guess, try to double up on his production. Bactylists are being morphed on the front lines. We glossed over the ski back earlier. Base number 3 happening for Zeker. And the cancel comes through. Actually, I think when it makes the big rubble, it means it wasn't canceled, but I wasn't actually watching at the time, so I can't confirm that. The Bactyls might be able to outrange some of these anchors from the high ground. This is a very dangerous position here for Newt. He's trying to survive with the power of Ahmed. Huracans are pretty good units, but there's no shame in to heal him up or anything. Tries to drive back that attack force. Wounds a lot of the Iziricors in the process. Cyprian's on the way to help equalize, but how are you going to get past the Bactyl wall on the high ground? That's so difficult. The answer is he's going to stim after with the Huracans trying to make contact, and Sziky was actually a bit slow to react to that. Some burrowed Iziricor is kind of being revealed incidentally. One anchor is able to land, the other one's still floating, but at least it's being repaired, and the Ministry number 2 can start migrating over to the expansion. Maybe Newt can try to fire back in this game, but the third base is online for Sziky, not quite being returned to yet. Maybe at a later stage. Both of those anchors were evacuated. We got another ministry starting, and Cyprians are going to finish, but a little bit too soon to really help out versus the Bactyl Iziricor drop. Not something that you see too often. The one Izzy is whatever, but the 2 Bactyls. Oh, he's actually floating the anchor back just in time, perhaps, but it's blocked by the Iziricor, at least for now. Masons are going to have to cycle out immediately, and he can just walk away from that pesky anchor. Some units pinched off to help deal with that. There's nothing at the front, so nothing to worry about right now, but the Ovoleth ends up tucking tail and running away. Now maybe diving back in. 3 Tetzoricors are being made elsewhere. That's to say that the Apex node is indeed done. Going after the Bactylists where possible. Most of Newt's force apparently didn't decide to go with it, so not entirely sure what happened there. Got a couple more units in the mineral line. Loses a Cyprian. At least no Mason went down freshly. All right, Ministry number 3. It's going to be landing just to make Masons, I think. You know, just the liftoff was for celebration that he made it. That's like part of the animation when it finishes. But only for Newt. We got more Drollots being made, but right now just grabbing that gas at the third base. A couple more on the way as well. I love mineral-only bases, and I know that's a controversial statement, but I really feel like they're pretty cool. And obviously, Sziky does not. He wants gas. He's going for a lot of Bactyls. Anchor up behind the gas. Vestry finally coming online here for the 4 stockades that Newt has. He's holding on for dear life. Got his 1 Maverick that he's trying to send out there on a scouting report. There's nothing here just yet. for defense, but it might end up being protected by the time the Maverick gets there, if it's even going in that direction at all. Zorka's Shroud on the way for Sziky. So if this goes long enough, he will start adding Lakes, maybe some Zorius, redden the armor, make the Bactals better, block the Cyprian shots even further. Second anchor on the way. Puts Newt in a pretty dominant position here. In comes the attempted drop one more time, but there's actually nothing behind the minerals. Well, there's Zerg now behind the minerals. And that's going to shut down some mining for a little bit of time here. The Hurricanes are in a good formation to try to hold on for dear life against this, but the Shaman was not deployed, and the anchor is not finished. As the first one falls and the front line is shattered, we got to look back and see what else has been going on. It looks like the Bactals, well, it regressed into a Hydra, and they ended up eating some of that Terran army there, nice and easy. Maverick dies at the natural choke. The two Hydras are going to unload over here. We are going to see something foment for this point. Anchor did end up getting unloaded, now floats back over. Only 4 stockades for this long has definitely made it so that the army has not grown to a very scalable amount versus what the Zerg has. Newt is very much fighting from a deficit. Worker count is slightly in his favor. Base count is not. Fourth is already up for Sziky, not mining yet. You can get a little bit more out of less bases in Cosmonarchy if you have more workers, but it's not that much of a difference. Oh, he remorphed them into Bactals and then dropped them. Dude, I've never seen anybody make Bactal drops to look scary, but Sziky is starting to do it. Newt just has such little, you know, free-form, free-flowing forces to spread out and use in this kind of context. He can't easily defend this kind of position. But he's adding more stockades. Maybe he can grow his army large enough to withstand and come back. Trying to dive back in with the Bactals. Should be good pretty soon to kill one of these Hurricanes. It is kind of a cheeky little tactic here. Just annoying, you know, again. Forces Newt to risk the front line, potentially. Good God. That's a lot of Bactals, boys. Frontline pretty scary as well. Remember, there's no Savants here. There's no Eidolons to try to focus down the Tetzoricors from a far enough distance. Avaleth will end up going down finally, so Hurricanes can help clean that up. Will they get a kill? They will not, finally. Zerg in the mud, as you expect. But maybe this will change our expectations. Charging forward is Sziky trying to break this position. Hurricane's not in a great position to do anything. Finally coming on down to try to grab the armor end on those Tetzoricors, but the Zorius have wrapped all the way around, and now the Cyprians have had their DPS reduced, and eventually their positions have collapsed. The Bactalisks alone could win this fight now, and when you say that, you know the game must be getting to a point where you gotta call it. This Bactal count has barely moved. In fact, 18 Bactals still remain. The Iziricors, the one Tetzoricor, still rocking out, and GG is called, giving Sziky the victory of Weekendwage number 6. Not quite the banger status of that first game on Knife's Edge that we saw between these two. What a great game that was, seriously, truly. But I am glad to see them do a rematch. Revenge secured for Zeker, and we will be having to go back. Oh, I didn't update the map name to Knife's Edge in the overlay. Well, you guys know it was Knife's Edge. I'll do it now just so that the final end shot is correct. But let me just tell you guys, the rivalry between these two players is starting to develop. I like to see it. I love to see it. We got to go for a little bit longer to find out if Sziky's going to continue leading from the front, so to speak, when Oya's not around. Or he did win over Oya last time too, so I'm looking forward to that one continuing. You guys want to support more pro show matches? Donate on the Streamlabs link in the description. And of course, if you want to support the project development overall, you can pledge monthly over on our coffee page. GG's, we'll be back with more videos soon.